Good evening. When poet Allama Iqbal was searching for a mentor or an ustad, it was someone who had his origins in Delhi that he looked up to. It was Dag Dehalvi, one of the last surviving of the great poets in Delhi. Of course, by that time, the fortunes of Delhi had dipped and it was at a low ebb, and Dag had moved to the patronage of the princely state of Hyderabad. With that began the brief correspondence between the last of the greats of Dabistan Dilli, the Delhi School of Urdu Poetry, and one of the premier poets of Dabistan Punjab. It's said that after reading Iqbal, Dag replied that it was very little that he had to correct or improve on Iqbal's composition. So with that note, of course, the correspondence between the two ended. One has to also understand that there were about 4,000 disciples of Dag at any point in time, and he had an office or a department set up for replying to the emails. So this could be just one of the cases. But Iqbal, till the end of his times, did consider Dag, a mentor of his or his ustad, and he says that Janabe Dag ki Iqbal ye sari karamat hai, tere jaise ko kar dala, sukhandan bhi, sukhanwar bhi. Drawing the Delhi connection between Lahore and Delhi further, Iqbal's early verses were published in Delhi's Zaban magazine. On that note, I welcome all of you to yet another session of Ganga Jamni. I trust all of you are safe and well, and I say about all other things, this too shall pass. In this session, we move westwards from Delhi, which is on the Yamuna, to the banks of Ravi, which is the site, if you go really far back, of the mythical Vedic battle of the 10 kings of the Dasarajana, the Purna Swaraj resolution, which Sahir refers to as Adab, the Kamil resolution from 90 years ago. Today's session is titled Kya Dilli Kya Lahore, and is intended as a discussion between two eminent historians from these respective cities, Dr. Swapna Liddle and Dr. Tahir Kamran. On screen, we have both of them. Dr. Kamran is a notable historian and a former Iqbal Fellow at the University of Cambridge. He's a visiting fellow at the University of Southampton, the SOAS, and the University of Cambridge. He was also till recently the chairperson of the Department of History and the Dean of the Arts and Social Sciences Faculty of the Government College, University, Lahore. He's presently a professor of history at the Beacon House National University in Lahore. His published works include Democracy and Governance in Pakistan, Idea of History Through the Ages, and Lahore in the Raj, which is co-authored with Ian Talbot. Dr. Liddle is an eminent historian and the convener of the Delhi chapter of INTAC. Her love for the city of Delhi, and in particular Shah Jahanabad, led her to write a PhD thesis on the cultural and intellectual life of Delhi in the 19th century, which I understand is soon to be published as yet another book. She is also the author of Delhi 14 Historical Walks, Chandni Chowk, Connaught Place in the Making of New Delhi. Her soon-to-be released book is about a 19th century map of Shah Jahanabad. Before I cede the floor to the stalwarts, I would like to add that this talk is intended to be a freewheeling discussion. We cover a bit of the history of the cities, the ebb and the flow, the present, the interconnect where there is. And given the prominence of these cities in the subcontinent and how we are as people, it may veer a bit into, or a little more into, the realm of politics, but I'm not going to complain about that. The history of Lahore, I mean, just before this talk, we were just discussing about the history of Lahore, and one of the many points that came up is one of the many interconnects that came up was that, of course, Delhi and Lahore both have been looted by roughly the same people, which is an unfortunate thing, but that's one of the things, that's not the only connect that came up. There is a constant connect throughout the medieval times, right from the Delhi Sultanate, when Lahore is actually a bone of contention between Ghazni, Multan, and the Delhi Sultanate. Then going further, there is Taimur, who invades both Delhi and Lahore. Then Babur comes in. Humayun escapes to Lahore and thence to Kandahar and Kabul and then to Persia. Then there is Akbar, Jahangir. So there is a lot of association as we move between Delhi and Lahore. Each of these cities also develop independently. And again, one of the things that came up during our talks was that possibly there's an ebb and flow, but not, I mean, there's where one goes up and the other goes down, not intentional. But as a result of the fact that these were two prominent cities and there were multiple foci where people from one place would move to the other when one goes down, For example, when Delhi in the 18th century, 19th century was undergoing a crisis and the Mughal Empire was in decline, people moved out for patronage to Lahore, and then the Lahore Darbar becomes prominent. Similarly, after 1857, again, there is a movement out of Delhi. So, I mean, it's quite a wide topic, and therefore there are no boundaries here. We're not going to structure it into anything, and it's just going to be a freewheeling conversation. On that note, I'd start with Dr. Liddle as to how do you place historical Delhi in context for all of this?
Thank you, Chanda, and thank you, Ganga Jamni, for making this possible. This is a dream come true, because this conversation between Delhi and Lahore is something that is really something that I was extremely excited to be able to have this conversation, really, because it fascinates me. I know, sadly, very little about Lahore. I should know more, but it's interesting. These two cities, of course, have this connect, which is sometimes not that clear. But one of the things that is clear is, of course, that they were both prominent Mughal cities. I mean, one could see that the Mughal emperors, of course, moved a lot, and you have, and of course, Professor Kamran will talk about Lahore as a Mughal city. But let me talk a little bit about Shah Jahanabad as a Mughal city. I won't go into the history of the founding of Delhi, the previous Delhis, etc. I'm going to start the story quite literally in the middle of the 17th century as a Mughal city, and but that has a background. Why did Shah Jahan, after many decades of the capital being at Agra, and what had happened was that Agra, Akbar had moved from Delhi. His father Humayun had, of course, built a capital in Delhi, which was Din Panah, but Akbar moved the capital to Agra, and it remained the capital till the time of Shah Jahan. But of course, one must remember that Jahangir, particularly, and Lahore used to be a convenient, of course, sort of a second capital, because particularly for access to the northwest. And Jahangir was responsible for a lot of the development of Lahore. But talking about Delhi, Shah Jahan, when he decided to come back to Delhi to found a capital here and named after him, what he was trying to draw on, there are the official historians, of course, give us a lot of they tell us that there was Agra had become crowded, it did not have a good climate, etc. But really, if you think about it, there's not a lot to choose between Delhi and Agra as far as climate is concerned, or the weather is concerned. And as far as crowded goes, you can there are many ways of opening up places. You can change the site a little bit. You can do a lot of things. Actually, I feel that and I've mentioned this before, what Shah Jahan was really looking at was drawing on the aura of power that had developed around Delhi. And Delhi also, so for that you have to look at the history. And the history is, of course, the history as you see in what had happened before, and the many imagined histories of Delhi. And he was trying to draw on a number of things. The fact that Delhi had been the capital of several older empires and dynasties. So you had the Tughlaqs, and you had the Lodhis, and so on and so forth. From the end of or beginning of the 13th century, it had been the capital of the so-called Delhi Sultanate. And therefore, that aura of power was there. There was also a sort of spiritual aura, and that spiritual aura not only drew from the Sufi traditions of Delhi. The Chishti Sufis are prominent in that, and Nizamuddin Auliya, and of course before him Qutub Bakhtiar Kaki. So that Sufi tradition was there. It was, Delhi is often popularly called the Bais Khwajaon ki Chaukhat. So the many Sufis of Delhi, that spiritual aura was there. There was also a spiritual aura which was connected with this idea that the banks of the Yamuna at Delhi were associated with certain mythical and uh, occurrences. That this was Indraprasth. It was Indraprasth where Indra had conducted various sacrifices, and Nigambodh was one of the sites in Indraprasth, and Nigambodh was where it is said that Brahma took a dip in the waters of the Yamuna and regained his lost memory of the Ved. And you have so it was all this mix of temporal and spiritual aura that Shah Jahan was drawing on. In that sense, Shahjahanabad is very, very much a huge imperial gesture. And I'm just trying to mention what that gesture and image making really consists of. It consists of drawing on this aura. If you look at, for instance, the Red Fort was built right next to Nigambodh, and the Mughal emperor, when he used to give darshan to his subjects in the morning, he was actually looking out on the banks of Nigambodh too, and on the ghats which are Nigambodh. You know, Nigambodh Ghat is very, really, really very close to the Red Fort. So that aura is there. We have therefore the founding of a capital which draws on that aura, and it makes certain statements about Mughal rule and about how the Mughals viewed themselves. And I'm going to show just a very few images because it would, what is. I can't seem to resist it. It's just too tempting to show, really to show images. So if Chanda will allow that, I would like to show a few images, and one of them is this of Chandni Chowk. This, of course, is an early 19th century image, but look at the width of the street. And that width of the street was because Shah Jahan wanted to have these grand processions. One of the things that the court historians talk about Agra was it was too constricted. When people came for the big darbars and the processions, they used to get crushed because it was so constricted. So he wanted this ceremonial avenue. This grand ceremonial avenue is very much a part of a new imagined status of the Mughal emperor. By Shah Jahan's time, you have truly the great Mughal who makes these grand gestures through these grand processions. So that kind of public persona is reflected in the very public persona of the Mughal emperor is reflected in the very planning of the city. Then, of course, you have the Jama Masjid, which is a very important landmark of the city. Again, from the early 19th century, a painter called Sitaram, who was actually employed by the Governor General of the East India Company. He was the one who was responsible for painting this. But Jama Masjid is, of course, occupies a very prominent place on a very high spot in Shahjahanabad. But actually, the place occupied right across from the Red Fort. The place of worship which is probably closest to the Red Fort, while not being inside the Red Fort, is the Jain Mandir. And this is something that dates from the time of Shah Jahan, when a particular neighborhood of Dariba was established here, and Jain merchants were invited to set up their businesses here, because any new capital requires its businessmen, it requires its bankers, and the empire needs its bankers. And many of the Jain merchants were the bankers of the empire. So this was very much a part of that. And the reason I am showing this here is because I'm trying to talk about what Shahjahanabad is. When the Mughals, and I'm not talking about how it developed later, even at its very inception, it is actually a showcase for the emperor's power, the emperor's grandeur, the empire's grandeur, and its wealth, its extent, but it is also about the inclusive nature of the empire. The emperor's subjects are a diverse lot, and the capital actually showcases that aspect as well. Um, and of course, the other great landmark is the citadel itself, because the city has within it a huge, what we call the Red Fort, is not actually a fort in the sense that it is not a very highly defensive structure. This is, by Shah Jahan's time, this is the heart of the empire. It is not expected that this will have to uh, withstand the onslaught of, it's not a frontier town, it won't have to bear the onslaught of many attacks. So therefore you have this great so-called fort, which is actually a palace complex. It's a inner palace complex, though it has a wall. It's a walled structure covered in red sandstone, hence the later name of Red Fort. It's in its time it is called the Qila'e Mualla, or the Qila'e Mubarak, and this is the fort inside it. This is not the place to actually talk about the architecture, etc., of the fort, but since we are having this conversation comparing, or not comparing, but at least trying to make parallels or differences between Lahore and Delhi, I thought, let me just talk about one interesting aspect which I find quite intriguing about the Red Fort as compared to similar structures in Lahore. And this is all architecture of a roughly similar time, of a roughly similar style. And when we look at the Red Fort in Delhi, one of the things that we see very frequently is the beautiful inlay work, the pietra dura inlay work that is executed there. Beautiful inlay with precious and semi-precious stones on marble. And of course, low relief carving, mostly in floral patterns. And much of this is there in Lahore as well. But one reason why, one of the many reasons why I would really like to go to Lahore is to look at some of the ornamentation that is there, because this is one of the things that we don't have in Delhi, which is beautiful tile work. And this is well, since Chandra said this is a freewheeling conversation, I said, let me introduce this. This is because this is one of the things that I really, as somebody who likes architecture and art, I would really, really want to go and see. And much of this is, and it's not only tile work, it is beautiful painting. And Jahangir particularly, he was such a big patron of painting, and many of his buildings, in fact in India also, if you look at the tombs in Allahabad, for instance, of his period, there are beautiful paintings inside them. But the Lahore Fort is very much one of the showpieces of that kind of style. So these are some of the images that you popularly find in of the fort, and which I would really, really like to go and see one day. So I'm going to stop sharing this. But, so this is how the Mughal capital comes to be established. And this is what Shahjahanabad is about. And punctuated with one of my little real bucket list items, I think. So, Chandra, over to you.
So, I mean, thank you for the introduction of Delhi and Shah Jahanabad as you spoke. Professor Kamran, now to you about Lahore, about placing Lahore in a historical context, not just the political history, because Dr. Liddle had also discussed about Nizamuddin. Similarly, Lahore has also been not just a political center, but also a cultural center. Nanak, though he was a traveler for most of his life, he spent quite a bit of time in Lahore. There is Data Ganj Baksh from Sufism. Then, of course, there are political movements. So could you just place Lahore in the context? So, I mean, as an introduction to our viewers who are not very familiar with Lahore.
Well, Chandra, I have jotted down a few points that I would like to share. share it with you. And as and when the occasion arises, I'll just stop and I'll explain. So I'll make it very, very quick so that we have more time to discuss. So, but the points that I jotted down, I think the context. So, for as this context is concerned, the it's really fascinating that Ghaznavi Ghaznavi period is very very interesting throughout its history. The first reference that I found out when I was working, or it was from Huon Xiang, the Chinese traveler, as early as 630 AD, although the historical records becomes more detailed from Muslim conquest at the beginning of the 11th century. So it was important administrative and political center, of course, with a large number of officials, scholars, saints, traders, and artisans to its expanding environs during Ghaznavid and Mughal eras. The city's importance for the Turco-Persian Ghaznavid Empire was encapsulated in its title, Ghaznai Khurd. So this is very important, because whenever we are discussing about Lahore, Lahore has these three layers, cultural layers, that are very succinctly articulated. One is this Ghaznavid or Turkish layer. Second is the Persian layer. And the third is, and the most important of it, is the Indian layer, the indigenous or autochthonous layer. So all these three layers, whenever they converge, they create a culture. That culture becomes peculiar to Lahore, not only to Lahore, to my reckoning of Delhi also. So that's what connects Lahore with Delhi and vice versa. So this Ghazna Khud, when Sheikh Ayaz was the governor here, and Sheikh Ayaz is buried in Lahore in Chowk Rang Mahal, and I once visited his tomb, and he is considered as a peer or as a saint. People go every Jumerat, every Thursday, and they lit a lamp on his grave. So the golden Ghaznavid era for Lahore was during the reign of Sultan Ibrahim. Sultan Ibrahim reigned from 1059 to 1099, when his sons Mahmud and Masood were the viceroys of the Punjab. It was during this period that Abul Hasan Ali al-Hijweri became the most famous resident of Ghazni to settle in Lahore, popularly known as Data Ganj Bakhsh, the master who bestows treasures. Data Ganj Bakhsh, it has a meaning, and this meaning is the master who bestows treasure. He is today revered as Pakistan's most famous Sufi saint. His mausoleum, built after his death in 1077, is the most frequented Sufi shrine in the city. Hijweri had traveled widely, like many Sufi saints, visiting Baghdad, Basra, Bukhara, Damascus, Syria, Khorasan, before settling in Lahore. While he established a khanqa, which now adjoins his tomb. Traveling dervishes were frequent visitors to Khanqa and carried with them to other parts of the Islamic world accounts of the generosity they received. Later Sufi saints such as Muinuddin Chishti visited Data Ganjbakhsh shrine in Lahore on their arrival in the subcontinent, and that is very interesting that. On the very face of the entrance of Data Ganjbakhsh tomb, there is a Persian couplet. Ganj Bakhsh Faiz Alam Mazar Noor Khuda. Nakisane Pire Kamil, Kamilan Rahnuma. That couplet is of Muinuddin Chishti Ajmeri. So Muinuddin Chishti Ajmeri visited he stayed there for a while, and he had a chilla there. A chilla is 40 days of meditation that he held there. So this is when he entered Data Ganjbak's tomb. So he composed this, or he recited this. This all this might have come to him as a revelation or intuition of sorts. So Ganjbaksh Faiz Alam Mazhar Noor Khuda Nakisane Pire Kamil Kamilan Rahnuma. So and this is still very much evident, and this also tells the connection between Muinuddin Chishti Ajmeri and Data Ganjbaksh. So alongside his charismatic authority, under whose influence many people converted to Islam, Data Ganjbaksh displayed great scholarship which bore fruit in the important treatise on Sufism in Persian, Kashf al-Majub, a revelation of the will. Now, here I will just, because personally I have a great reverence, and I'm greatly fascinated by Shah Hussain or Madhulal Hussain. Um, Madhulal Hussein's poetry is very profound and is very insightful also for those who have this smattering in Sufism to a certain extent. And Shah Hussain was contemporary of Akbar. Many says this. So to my reckoning, Data Ganjbaksh, though he is very famous, of course, undoubtedly so. But before 1860s, the saint patron of Lahore had been Shah Hussain. Shah Hussain had been far more eclectic, syncretic, and in his ideas, the convergence of several cultural and subcultural strands were very, very visible, very, very tangible. So it was only that British came that this saint pattern changed. That is my own reading, and I still insist on that. That since Shah Hussain was oral, he was ascetic, he didn't write anything, and he said whatever he could in poetic diction, whereas Ali Hijweri or Data Ganjbaksh wrote this Kashful Majub, that is a written text, and that text was very, very influential, because when Nicholson translated it into English, and that English translation reached England, two people, from the Anglo-Saxon race, they converted to Islam, and they became his disciples, and they became his khalifas. One is buried in here in the Qabristan adjacent to Data Ganjbaksh, and the other one went to Karachi on the instruction that he received through vision. He went to Karachi and he spread his message there, and he is buried there. It was such an influential text, of course. But what I say is that, and my claim is, assertion is that Shah Hussain had been the same pattern before British came. So Data Ganjbaksh, the prominence that he enjoys is relatively recent. Not denying that he was not as important a Sufi poet. He indeed was. But Shah Hussain had been, because his mela, the fair that used to be held on Shah Hussain, there was no match. His urs, his annual, anniversary of Shah Hussain, the whole Punjab used to throng. And it happened until my youth. It's very recent that Data Ganpach became very, very prominent. And so Sufi saints also flocked to Lahore during Mughal era. Akbar, who ascended to the throne in 1556, encouraged Sayyid Muhammad Shah from Uch in Bahawalpur to settle in the city after the saints' prayers ensured the success of the Mughal emperor in the siege of Chittor. And Mia Mir, one of Lahore's most celebrated saints, came from Thatta in Sindh during Akbar's reign. And we know that there's that Hazrat Mia Mir became very prominent as as a murshid of Dara Shikoh. And the reverence that he received or he enjoyed from the Sikh gurus. So Mia Mir had been very, very important. Um, the British were to later build a cantonment close by to his shrine in the area of Lahore, named after the saint. Uh, so the colonial rulers were also to convert into official use the mosque near the shrine of Shah Chirag Gilani. Gilani was also from Uch in Bahawalpur and had come to the city during Shah Jahan's reign. Shah Jahan attracted artisans as well as Sufis from as far afield as Central Asia and Persia to produce exquisite carpets and shawls in royal factory, which he established. A large area of palaces and gardens were constructed outside walled city in the Mughal era. So there's no doubt about this because Lahore still, there's a website in which Lahore is remembered as a city of gardens. So if the biggest source currently on Lahore is in Urdu, I hope Swapna must have cruised through it. That's the Nakush Lahore number. So it's a quite hefty 1300 page long document in which if one tries to leaf through the chapter that it's amazing how many gardens Lahore had, and most of those gardens were built, constructed during the Mughal period. So these were and also Havelis. A large area of palaces and gardens were constructed outside walled city in the Mughal era. These were the residences of nobles and administrators. Artists, traders, and poets were also drawn to Lahore, which for 13 years of Akbar's reign. Akbar stayed there from 1585 to 1598, and five of Jahangir was imperial. So during these years, Lahore had become an imperial capital. The city's strategic location at the junction of roads to Kabul, Multan, Kashmir, and Delhi, and its famed healthy climate made it the center of Mughal government. Now, sadly, that is not a healthy climate anymore. Lahore is a very polluted city, and Lahore became healthier when there was a lockdown. Earlier this year, because the auto rickshaws and buses and all sorts of things, and it was a disservice to Lahore by Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, who asked to cut down 4,000 trees, denuding Lahore of greenery, because he wanted to build metro and orange train and blue train and red train and all this, this this really pang of anguish pierces the heart of a sensitive person who has some feelings for Lahore. The way this monstrosity in the name of development has turned Lahore into now Government College Lahore is not visible from Lower Mall. Why? Because all this bridge that has been created, the character of Lahore, the Lahore that was a colonial city or a Mughal city, that has been totally ruined. And similarly, Bashai Mosque, if you want to have a view of Bashai Mosque, is blocked. The Shahi Fort's view has been blocked. And Data Ganjpak's tomb, this bridge is going over that, not exactly over, but you're just so all this unbridled and unplanned and this development of without any vision that has totally robbed Lahore of its character, traditional character, cultural character. That's a very, very sad aspect, and really the heart cries and weeps, So the Mughal karkhanas or workshops attracted skilled artisans from Afghanistan, Persia, and Central Asia. Their presence led to high quality productions. Abul Fazl, the court historian of Akbar's reign, recorded that carpet weaving in Lahore was of a higher quality than could be found in Persia and Central Asia. While many of the palaces and gardens fell into decay in the disturbed conditions of the mid 19th century, the city's fortifications, royal tombs, and landmark mosques survived until the colonial era. It was not only the Mughal emperors who permanently beautified the city. The exquisite Wazir Khan Mosque inside Delhi Gate was built by Punjab Governor Wazir Khan in 1631. So, Chandra, if you can show the um, Wazir Khan's image, that's the pearl of Lahore, or the ornament of Lahore, as they call it. And Lockwood Kipling, when he was the first principal of Mayo School of Arts, he used to send his students and asking them, rather instructing them to draw, sketch, and how painting this, how to paint. It has been. If you can just show the interior of this, too. This is the interior of, it was built in 1631, and look at the beauty of it. And another important thing that amazed me really, there's a pulpit inside this mosque which was donated to this mosque by none other than Lord Curzon in 1901. So the um, that opened up a new vista of perception or understanding that how mosques came in handy to all sorts of rulers, whether they were Sikhs or British or Christians or whosoever. So mosques where congregational prayer used to happen. So lots of people could be assembled there. So if you want to instruct them, or if you want to pass on some message to them, these were the and Fakir Saifuddin revealed it to me. I didn't know this, that the congregational prayer in Bashai Mosque started in 1811 on the instruction of Ranjit Singh. So before that, there had been no congregational prayer. Namaz be jamaat jo, namaz ba jamaat jo कहते हैं मुसलमानों का. So this congregational prayer was started by Ranjit Singh because and he asked all the Muslim nobility to come to Bashai Mosque and offer congregational prayer. So that nobility should be in touch with the common populace. and that's how it would help the Sikh ruler to devise his strategy. So his family originated from Chinyot. We know this, that Saadullah Khan Chinyoti was from Chinyot, and he built a wonderful mosque in Chinyot. So this Wazir Khan was from Chinyot in the Jhang district. I am really very um, uh, thrilled because I'm from Jhang district. So Sadullah Chinyoti came from the district where I come from. So at least there are a few people from Jhang who did such a wonderful work. Later, Governor Madan Ali Khan, who had come to Lahore from Kandahar, began the irrigation canal, which was to help water Shah Jahan's famous Shalimar Gardens with its marble pools and 410 fountains. This was laid out in 1642 on land at Baghbanpura that belonged to the local Arai family, who were to rise to prominence in colonial era. And because Lahore's politics, during colonial era was divided between two brotherries or kinships. One was Arai, they were very powerful agrarian community, and the other one was Kashmiris. Allama Iqbal was contested his elections in 1926, invoking this Kashmiri card because he was very proud to be a Kashmiri Brahmin. He was Sapro Brahmin, and he used to take special pride in being Sapro Brahmin. From Kashmir. And same is the case with Mia Muhammad Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz Sharif. They too are Kashmiris from Amritsar. So Kashmiris and Arais, these are two families which contested elections. Um, Ever since elections started happening in Punjab from 1920-21. The garden's elegance, sense of harmony, and strong Persian influence marked the apogee of Mughal garden design. At the time of the Shalimar Gardens construction, Lahore was reputed to be equal of a great Persian cities like Shiraz as the grand resort of people of all nations, with such luxuries as ice and musk melons available all the year round. Mughal building projects encouraged an influx of artisans to the city. Here we can see similarities with later Mughal building projects. Jahangir's red sandstone tomb at Shadra on the right bank of the river Ravi, with its massive gateways, enclosures, and gardens, took 10 years to construct. A new locality named Mohalla um, Sangtrasha or Stonecutters locality grew up nearly inhabited by stonecutters and other artisans. Again, as in the colonial era, merchants and traders from as far afield as Central Asia were drawn to the city, to such markets as Akbari Mandi inside Akbari Gate, and the bazaar adjacent to Wazir Khan Mosque, where there was an international trade in books and writing materials. And Akbar also encouraged Portuguese priests to come from Goa, so that he could debate Christianity with them. Lahore then became a capital of Sikh kingdom, and it prospered. But the prosperity that Lahore witnessed under Mughals, you know, that you can say that history repeated itself, as Swapna was mentioning. After 1857, the upward journey of Lahore, so far as cultural growth, as social prominence, was concerned, it started after 1857 when Delhi, Delhi was imputed to be an epicenter of rebellion, of as they call it, mutiny. I won't call it war of independence because Savarkar, started calling it war of independence. So after that, the whole concentration on Lahore, and Lahore became a colonial city. So I think I have taken too much of a time, as compared to Swapna. Swapna was very brief, comprehensive, and very focused. So I was not that focused. I'm sorry for that, for taking that much time. So I hope whatever I said, it made some sense.
Yes, of course, it did. Thank you, Professor. So, moving over, I mean, now that we've placed Lahore and Delhi, I mean, we've brought Lahore and Delhi to the 19th century. I think that now this is also the subject of your PhD, Dr. Little. So, I think please feel free to, yeah, because I mean, this is the 19th century when the political history of Delhi is, let us say, from 1803, when the British came to Delhi. The Mughal history, the political history is at its lowest ebb, but then there is a cultural efflorescence that's happening in the city of Delhi, whether it's the language of Urdu, whether it's education. So can you just talk about that a little bit?
And one thing, Swapna, if you can refer to, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan shifted to Aligarh from Delhi. And what was the motivation according to you? Though born and bred in Delhi, and he wrote Sare Sanadid on the buildings of Delhi, but later on he went away to Aligarh. Why was it? So.
Um, I think, yes, I mean, we've been talking about Delhi and Lahore as Mughal cities, pretty much as Mughal twin capitals in the sense, because the Mughal emperors, of course, moved a lot and they based themselves in pretty much either of these cities from Akbar's time onwards, particularly. So the importance of those and many of the things that Professor Kamran has mentioned about Lahore are true for Delhi as well. Delhi, any capital city, any cosmopolitan city attracts
Hmm.
talent from all over. Uh, there are rich people who are commissioning architectural projects, therefore artisans, materials. There is a market for luxury goods, so trade is coming in. There is the rise. There is patronage from the state as well as rich patrons who provide cultural patronage, also patronage to poets. They sponsor educational institutions, and education, of course, is a great attraction for reason for people to come to a particular center. I mean, that holds true even today. There are the great centers of education are invariably places where people are
Hmm.
coming from all over the world. I mean, big and from so that is true of Lahore and Delhi both, that they attracted because of that political, cultural, spiritual um, power and influence that these cities had. They had people coming in. And actually, what begins to happen is, as far as Delhi is concerned, that the decline of the Mughal Empire from particularly from the mid 20th century, mid 18th century. Early in the 18th century, also there is a lot of uncertainty and civil strife, etc. But that gets accelerated, and then you have, of course, Tadir Shah, and some time later, Ahmad Shah Abdali. All those are very well-known incidents in Delhi's history. Uh, what that does is that it affects the fortunes of some of these old families. And it has its impact on Delhi from the point of view of patronage. And Delhi one of the things, of course, that has to be mentioned is that it's a great center of the Urdu language as well. So you have the growth of the Zaban-e-Urdu-e-Mualla, which then becomes Urdu, and it is. By the 18th century, of course, it is a great vehicle of poetry, and the focus in that sense, there's a huge amount of patronage from the Mughal court itself also, and that is come, and you have these great poets like Mir and Mir Taqi Mir and
Ghalib,
yeah, Ghalib, of course, comes in the 19th century, but
19th century, yeah. Nazir Akbar Abadi.
All those people are Mir Dard is there.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Mir Dard.
Mirza Rafi Soda is there. So these are great poets of the 18th century who, even in the context of a serious decline slowly of patronage, are still somehow surviving. And in fact, their departure to other places, like Mir's departure for Lucknow, he's one of the last to leave, is symptomatic of the decline of Delhi. So towards the last decades of the 18th century, Delhi from the 1770s, 80s has seen this kind of cultural crisis of people not getting enough patronage. Many of the educational institutions also declined because of that. If you don't have rich people who will support these the state will not be able to support educational institutions, you have a decline. Though none of this completely dies out, it still survives. It has less patronage. So those who can move have moved to other places for patronage, but that underlying culture is there. And what happens in the early 19th century is that the East India Company conquers the Doab, the Ganga Yamuna Doab. It has conquered the Doab. It has defeated the Marathas. By that time, of course, the Marathas had been controlling Delhi as well. The 18th century is, of course, a period of great political shuffles and realignments. And rather than going into the details of all of them, it's enough to say that by the last decades of the 18th century, it is the Marathas who are actually the de facto rulers of Delhi. And the Mughal emperor at that point, Shah Alam II, he is pretty much a puppet in their hands. And that position changes to the extent that the East India Company in 1803 defeats the Marathas and conquers Delhi. So now the Mughal emperor goes from being a sort of tool in the hands of the Marathas to being a tool in the hands of the East India Company. And very soon this position emerges where the East India Company is the de facto ruler in Delhi, and the Mughal emperor is a pensioner sitting in the fort. So that is the political context of this first half of the 19th century, which starts really from 1803 and continues until the revolt of 1857. That is the political situation. What happens on the cultural front is very interesting, because now you have peace. You have peace, and you have Delhi is, of course, not the capital. Capital of the British is Calcutta, but Delhi is still very important because it's the place from which the highest official in Delhi, who was called the resident and the commissioner, those nomenclatures changed, but he was the one who really dealt with all the princely states of Rajasthan, princely states to the west. So it has a sort of a political, sort of a somewhat localized but political importance. But really, from the fact of the Mughal emperor sitting in the Red Fort, it has political importance as well, because a lot of the states and a lot of the people of India, a lot of the princes of India still felt that the Mughal emperor was the fount of legitimacy, of political authority. So that political aura, to some extent, a reduced extent, is still there. And peace, which comes with the East India Company finally defeating all its rivals. So all that, the upheavals of the 18th century die down with the defeat of the Marathas. you have an era of peace in Delhi. And what happens with peace is that there's a revival of educational institutions, of the culture, the poetry, etc. As I said, it had not completely died out, but now there is a chance for somewhat of a revival. Of course, that revival is very complex, but there are components of it which are, I think, worth looking at. So what we are seeing is by the early 19th century, and certainly soon after the conquest, you have a revival in Delhi, and you have a great the population recovers. Population had dwindled. It begins to property prices begin to rise, etc. But I think what is many more constructions happen. So you see in this picture this is a view of the Jama Masjid from the Red Fort, and you see the number of houses, the trees. It's a very populous place. So the city is flourishing. This sketch was actually drawn by Russian Prince Saltykov in the 1840s. So you can see it's a flourishing city. The Mughal emperors, of course, there is Shah Alam, who rules for a little while. Then he's followed by Akbar II. This is the image of the Darbar of Akbar II. And he maintains a show. In symbolic terms, he is still the emperor. In fact, the Governor General refers in his letters to Akbar II, he refers to himself as Fidwi-e-Khas, which, your devoted slave. There is, at least in these formal terms, there is a hierarchy in which the Mughal emperor is supreme, even vis-a-vis the Governor General of the East India Company. But that position does not last very long. By the time Bahadur Shah has come to the throne, that relationship is not there. And there is a steady erosion of Mughal political influence, no matter what the other people see. And there is a difference, because the people of Delhi, the people of India around Delhi, are still looking at the Mughal emperor with some amount of difference. But
Dr. Liddle, can these images be? Can you make it full screen on your computer?
I will try and do that. Right. Right. Is that better? Hello? Can you see me?
Well, on my computer, it is exactly the same.
Can it be full screen? Are you using PowerPoint?
Yeah.
I think it's okay. I think we'll just carry with this.
That's fine. It tells. Yeah.
Okay.
So the last image that I'm showing you, of course, this one is the Ghaziuddin Madrasa. And the reason I'm showing you this is it's an old, it had been around since the latter part of the 17th century, the last part of the 17th century. But this became the center of the Delhi College. And the Delhi College is very important. It's one of the centers in which there is in one of the ways in which Delhi's culture has changed in that period, because you have the Delhi College is the first Western style college established in Delhi. As I said, Delhi was an important center of education for a long time, much before the Mughals as well. But now what happens is Delhi College becomes the center of, and it has been called the Delhi Renaissance by C.F. Andrews. What happens is that you have a sort of a confluence, because you have Western science, etc., beginning to be taught here through the medium of the Urdu language. So you have there are a number of names associated with the Delhi College. There is, of course, one of them is Mohanlal Kashmiri. Mohanlal Kashmiri is one of the early success stories of the Delhi College. He is somebody who is educated in the traditional system, but joins the Delhi College, learns English, becomes a mediator for the British in their expansion in Afghanistan. So he becomes a sort of, he's a diplomat. And the British, of course, dismiss these people very offhand as munshis, as interpreters, but they are much more than that. He's there. There's another person called Shahamat Ali, and these are really they negotiate. They are the diplomats who negotiate on behalf of the East India Company with the as it expands into the Northwest. So there are many features. So the Delhi College has these kind of people. On the other hand, it also has people like Master Ramchandar. Master Ramchandar was a science teacher. He was of course, he had studied here and he became the science teacher over here. And he really is one of those thinkers. He was a mathematician who did original work in mathematics, which was published and acknowledged in Britain. His treatise on maxima and minima is quite well known. But he actually was also, he also thought about a lot of other aspects. He commented on a lot of social reform, for instance. He writes essays. He started this popular magazines through the Delhi College, Kirano Sadain, Fawaidun Nazreen, Muhibbe Hind. These are magazines that some of them were started associated with the Delhi College itself and others not. But he contributed to all of them. And what is beginning to happen is this intellectual ferment, this social ferment that is happening in the Delhi College. And it's not only because of the input of the teachers, or the European teachers here. The people like Ramchandar have a huge contribution in this, and many of these directions are given by Ramchandar. So the idea that of a reform of the traditional Urdu Farsi culture, what he talks about as an outdated culture, the Islah of traditional culture and of traditional poetry, and the other name, and of course, Master Ramchandar himself practiced a very simple prose writing, and he comments on the excessive, what he calls an excessive floweriness, and calls for a reform of the Urdu world of poetry, etc. And some of these voices are also can be seen, for instance, in Karimuddin. Karimuddin is another alumnus of the Delhi College, and he's originally from Panipat, like many others, comes to Delhi to study and eventually teaches for a while in the Delhi College as well. So the Delhi College is one of those big centers of this intellectual ferment. Another public body is the Delhi Archaeological Society. We keep talking about the Survey of India, Archaeological Survey of India, but actually the Delhi Archaeological Society is a sort of a predecessor to this. And a lot of the early excavation work, for instance, in the Firoz Shah Kotla is done by the Delhi Archaeological Society. The identification of many of the sites of old capitals of Delhi, that Shahpur Jat is actually what was the site of Siri. So these kind of this identification of different sites, etc., which later actually Cunningham talked about, and he did not acknowledge the fact that really these identifications had been made much earlier in the Delhi Archaeological Society meetings in a paper that was presented by Ziauddin Ahmad Khan, who was from the Loharu family, princely state. And so these are a lot of the intellectual activity that is going on in Delhi, which comes to an abrupt end with the revolt of 1857. And the revolt of 1857, of course, is a major upheaval. Delhi becomes a center of the revolt because the Mughal emperor still, in so many popular minds, is seen as the fount of legitimacy, and people converge on Delhi. The soldiers who have revolted all over North India, they converge on Delhi. Delhi becomes a major center for the revolt. For 4 months, there's an independent government that is done. But unfortunately, after that, what happens is a sort of really the destruction of Delhi. Because when the British reconquer Delhi, the East India Company reconquers Delhi, you have an era of a refashioning of the city. So that the flourishing town between the Red Fort and the Jama Masjid is actually cleared. So from Saltykov's drawing to this photograph of the 1860s, I think, or 1870s probably, shows the big Maidan that opens up, this big field that opens up, because all those buildings are demolished. As Ghalib says, that पूरे बस्तियां खत्म हो गई, कि लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि यहाँ पे कुछ कभी होता था. People will not be able to identify where their house used to stand because it has all been demolished. Large parts of the city were refashioned. The British added their own layer to that city, where Jahanara's, this was Chandni Chowk, where the chowk was. In the middle of it was a pool, which was then replaced by a clock tower. Where Jahanara's Sarai used to stand, that Sarai was demolished and replaced with what later came to be known as the town hall. So there was this huge refashioning of the city, and refashioning of the city, and eventually the second half of the 19th century, I'm going to leave it to Professor Kamran to talk about that, is that focus then shifts to Lahore, because with Delhi becomes a backwater. Delhi is punished for the revolt, and it is, first of all, it is evacuated. People are thrown out of the city for months altogether. Most Hindus and Jains are slowly allowed to come back. The Muslims are kept out for much longer. It's a punitive measure. And eventually, because there is no hope, you can't hang about outside hoping that one day you'll be allowed to come in. You have to resume your life. The Delhi diaspora eventually goes off to other places. Sayyid Ahmad Khan, again, was a major contributor to the Delhi Archaeological Society. He, of course, wrote Asarus Sanadid around the same time as the society was getting on. He presented papers at the Archaeological Society also in the 1840s. He of course, has very mixed ideas about what the revolt is, but he also suffers, I think, largely from a very he regrets the passing of that Delhi culture, which made this intellectual vibrancy possible. And that is there. But he also probably recognizes that the heyday of Delhi and the climate which fueled this is now past, because the Delhi College is actually also closed down. So the focus really shifts, because Sayyid Ahmad Khan, of course, goes to Aligarh. Then as far as the college is concerned, the Delhi College is closed down, and the focus shifts to the Lahore College. So government college. And what happens is that a lot of the Delhi diaspora also go off. So you have Nazir Ahmad, for instance, the great novelist, and he is one of the people, Altaf Hussain Hali. Are people who are talking about the new poetry. They're talking about new developments in prose. And they are the ones, and many of these seeds of these movements had been sown in Delhi, but that proved to be abortive because of 1857. So 1857 has this and its aftermath has this really negative effect on Delhi. It's it is so brutally suppressed that Delhi goes into a decline for the next half a century, only to revive later with after the Darbar of 1911. This image is of the British Emperor George V and his consort Mary giving darshan to the people of Delhi on the occasion of the Darbar of 1911, where the announcement is made. This is the coronation, said to celebrate the coronation of the new emperor. And there the announcement is made that Delhi will be the capital now of the British in India, as opposed to Calcutta. And that inaugurates a different era in the history of the city. But as far as so that of course is a completely different story. But this is the 19th century, what happens in the first half as opposed to the second half, which is when Lahore also uh, develops as a colonial city.
Well, thank you very much, Swapna. Chandra, am I allowed to take the thread from there, from here, where
Please,
Swapna?
please, you're welcome to. I would rather that I don't have to come in between both of you.
No, no, no. That's mediation at times is a very good thing, you know.
Please,
Well,
please.
thank you very much, Swapna. It was very illuminating and quite a bit of, and particularly references to Delhi College. And I really wonder if had Delhi College continue its journey, and its journey didn't come to an abrupt end. Things would have been different because the indigenous streak of knowledge that it displayed, that was of wonderful, that had a lot of potential at that time. And Another thing that's very, very important for Delhi College, and unfortunately, Delhi College is under-researched, particularly in Pakistan. Very few people refer to Delhi College, despite the fact that when we see Oriental College, Lahore, Oriental College prospered quite a lot because of the alumnus and the progeny that Delhi College churned out or spun out. Muhammad Hussain Azad was one person. Who Pyare Lala Show was another person. Ram Chandra, you're talking about Ram Chandra. He was one of great academics. With multiple interests. So I flickeringly remember that he also came to Lahore. So the Translation Bureau in Lahore that was established, most of the people who came and served here, Altaf Hussain Ali also came and did the same, Translation Bureau. So they sought employment here, and eventually they switched gear, and by 1860s, when Colonel Holroyd became the director of public instruction, and G.W. Leitner came to Lahore as first principal of Government College Lahore, as well as the first registrar of Punjab University. Similarly, Fazul Hassan Saharanpuri came here. And many people, like, Punjab and particularly Lahore had become a land of opportunities. Like Gangaram came here. Gangaram's father was from Radhabad. He came here and he settled down, and he was one of the great benefactors of the city as well as of the whole province of Punjab. Similarly, many other, and Lahore witnessed this. Another thing, my own theory is that I'm going to share with you is the Khatri Renaissance. The Hindu Khatris being more progressive, open to new ideas, education, and whatever British did, establishing new institutions and giving new opportunities to those who want to move on and and climb the ladder of social mobility. All those institutional support was provided to them. So many people who were from Khatri background, they developed and they became quite prosperous. And Lahore was the beneficiary of their services, like Rai Bahadur Melaram, who was the first textile owner. very close to Data Darbar. He had first textile and a textile mill, and that is the family. His father, his son, Rai Bahadur Sarandas. They had a great contribution in the electrification of Lahore from 1914, and those were the people who provided electricity to Data Darbar. And their Lal Koti used to be the center, cultural center. Whenever there used to be a Muharram, they put up sabil for the mourners. Whenever there was Eid Miladul Nabi, they used to invite people. Dussehra or Holi or Diwali, they used to throw a big feast for the people, and then Mushaira, the tradition of Mushaira, they started and they continued with it. So similarly, Bharat Insurance Company and Lakshmi Chowk became the epicenter of trade, and that was all together. Government College Lahore played a vital role in giving a prop to those progressive Hindu Khatris. Um, but here it's really important for us to look at the reform movements of which Lahore was one of the centers, like Arya Samaj. Arya Samaj uh, was conjured up into existence by Gujarati Dayanand Saraswati, but it flourished in Lahore. DAV College was created. So all those Khatri affluent people, businessmen and traders, they lent enormous support to those reform movements. Similarly, Anjuman Himayat Islam was created, Anjuman Islamia was created, or then Anjuman Punjab was created. So Anjuman Punjab had very strong backing by the government. So that was one of the Anjumans who strived for the establishment of Punjab University, because when Government College Lahore was established in 1864, it was affiliated with Calcutta University. So look at Lahore and the distance of Calcutta. So then in 1881, this Punjab University was established here, and first affiliated college was Government College Lahore. But one thing that one must bear in mind is that the first institution of higher education in Lahore was in 1860, and that was Lahore Medical School. Now it's King Edward's Medical College, very famous, but it was inaugurated in 1860. So that was a period of transition. And one thing that I have been quite critical of British is the introducing Urdu as a vernacular. Urdu had never been a vernacular of Punjabis, you know. So it was in 1854 that Urdu was declared as vernacular and the court language. So now Punjabis, very few Punjabis knew Urdu, and Urdu was known by the UPites, Delhi people, and Bengalis. So many Bengalis, many people from UP and Delhi, they migrated to Lahore because, obviously the top layer of administration used to speak and conduct their business in English, then Urdu, and Punjabi obviously did count. So it was miraculous that Punjabis picked Urdu far too early. And the first newspaper, Sarkari Akhbar, it was It was brought out by the government itself. And then we see that within 15 to 20 years, Urdu journalism, it flourished. Paisa Akhbar, Rafiq-e-Hind, and Wakil from Amritsar. These newspapers came up, and in 1903, Zimidar came up. It was started off from Karmabad, but later on, 3 years afterwards, it was shifted to Lahore, and it became one of the major voices, anti-British voices. And then Pratap and Milap. Similarly, Dayal Singh Majidhya started Tribune. Now Tribune became a very strong English newspaper. It still comes out from Chandigarh, I believe. So these were newspapers, and then literary culture. Swapna was talking about Urdu, and obviously Delhi and Lucknow had been very, very powerful centers of promoting Urdu. But we can see that from 1890s, the Bhati Darwaza or Bhati Gate area, particularly Bazar-e-Hakima within Bhati Darwaza, it became the epicenter of this literary culture. Sir Abdul Qadir brought out Maqsan. Maqsan became one of the leading Urdu literary magazine that started from 1895, and it continued until much afterwards. Similarly, Hazar Dastan was started in 1919 by Ahmad Shuja Pasha. And it's really fascinating that Maulvi Mumtaz Ali, who was graduated from Darul Uloom Deoband, and he was a good friend of Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, he brought out Haquq-e-Niswa. That is the first Muslim feminist, particularly his wife, Muhammadi Begum. She wrote immensely small pamphlets about dastkari, about manual work, about all these things. So it's a very progressive sort of progressive era that Lahore epitomized from 1895 onwards. And then Makhzan is important because Iqbal started publishing in that magazine, and there had been two to 3 points where Hakim Aminuddin's Batak is the sitting room, where all the laureates used to get together and they used to recite poems. Similarly, Hakim Shehbazuddin's Batak. So these Hakims were very, very important. These were two very important families living there. One was the Fakir family. The Fakir family originated originally from, many years ago. They shifted to Lahore from Ludhiana because Fakir Azizuddin was advisor and prime minister at one time, and then private physician of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And the Bazari Hakima is named after the Hakims. There's another family which was known for its scholarship and its prestige, and the reverence that they were held in by the people of Lahore. So that was called as the Chelsea of Lahore, where different cultures and subcultures were converging, and that confluence, became the cultural signature of Lahore. And obviously, Iqbal was very important figure. But along with Iqbal, that Lahore ka Chelsea or Lahore's Chelsea, many people from UP and Delhi came, and they took up their residence. Mirza Daq Dehlvi came to Lahore for some time. Shibli Nomani came to Lahore. Altaf Hussain Hali came to Lahore. Arshid Gurgani came from Lucknow and settled there. So similarly, Hashar Kashmiri, great playwright and dramatist, he used to come from Calcutta and um, uh, lived in Bhati Darwaza, or this Lahore's Chelsea. And another thing is the cinema culture. Dr. Nasreen Rahman has done very good thesis on this, PhD thesis on Lahore cinema from 1923 to 1947. So Lahore had been the third biggest movie centers after Mumbai, Calcutta, and then Lahore. So there was Haveli Mia Khan, where Bade Ghulam Ali Khan used to live. Noor Jahan came there, and similarly Takia Mirasiyan, where every singer and every artist had performed there. So this Lahore ka Chelsea, or this walled city of Lahore, it provided opportunities to quite a few people, including Muhammad Rafi. Muhammad Rafi was in Mochi Darwaza, and he used to cut hair, and he was working at a barber's shop, and with that, he also sang. And that's how he was picked up, and he then moved to Mumbai, and look where Muhammad Rafi is. Similarly, Noor Jahan. Noor Jahan's real name is Allah Rakhi. She was born in Kasur, but then she moved to Lahore, and she, as Lata Mangeshkar is for India, Noor Jahan is for Pakistan, the Nightingale. So all of them emerged, and they gave a cultural profile to Lahore, which made Lahore what Lahore is right now. And then Lahore was a center of political agitation. After Jallianwala Bagh in 1919, Lahore suffered, and Lahore hosted many annual meetings of Indian National Congress, All India Muslim League, Majlis-e-Ahrar, had a very strong presence here in Lahore. And then what's the name of that hall? Alberta Hall, or I will just recall it. This and similarly, the mall of Lahore now is named Sharae-e-Qaid-e-Azam. K.K. Aziz, in his book The History of Lahore's Coffee House, he gives graphic details because he saw how this mall road was prior to partition. The Anglo-Indians were in great number. And Mall Road is the one that connects old city with new settlements. So it used to be called as Thandi Sadak because there were big trees, and Lawrence Garden at one side and Governor House on the other side. So lots of gardens on that. That road, then it crosses the canal and goes to newer city, the newer city of Lahore, like Lahore Kent and then Gulberg area. Then in the 1920s, Mall Town was conceived, and that was an elitist elitist satellite town, where the super elite of Lahore used to live. So that's how Lahore came up as a modern city, uh, which had more of a colonial culture than the Mughal culture or character. Colonial character. Railway station was built, and one thing that really needs to be highlighted here, that all the new buildings that were made, older buildings were destroyed, and all the raw material from the older building was used to construct newer buildings. So that's true for Lahore's railway station. Muhammad Sultan Thekedar used to do this. He was expert in ravaging the old Havelis. Old Havelis were destroyed and newer buildings were built. So that happened quite a lot. Now Punjabi people are, unfortunately, many of, my one generation prior to me, my father's generation, they were really full of praise for British, that they were this and they were that, and had they not come, we would have been lived in dark ages. And they, built us up. They redeemed us, so on and so forth. Exchange of comments. But the thing is that the older heritage, primarily Mughal heritage, Sikhs did the same. Like Swapna was showing Lal Killa, Red Fort, and inlaid work and all that. So if a visit to Jahangir's tomb would be a wake-up call for many of us. First of all, when the railway line was laid out, much of the territory, much of the vicinity that falls within the mausoleum of Jahangir, it was taken out, and it became a railway. So it was. Now, when some buildings of the religious importance were being built in Amritsar during Ranjit Singh's, much of those ornamental work was peeled off, and it was transported to Amritsar. So, and still, from Shahi Fort and here and there, and particularly Jahangir's tomb and several other Mughal buildings, you can witness that all those diamonds and motis and all this, they were scratched off, something sharp. And that's how, those buildings were changed into shabby-looking, dilapidated, worn-out buildings. So there's similarly, Kamran ki Baradari had once been a very good tourist resort. Now with Ravi having been changed into a sewerage, so Kamran ki Baradari suffered. No one goes there. One cannot go there. Particularly these days. But when Corona is pervading up to the very core of both India and Pakistan. So Ravi, this is really unfortunate. Indus Basin Treaty has done a lot of damage to Lahore's character, because Ravi, now there's no water in Ravi unless there's a flood, and all the waste and sewage from Lahore, is put in the Ravi River. So it's all smelly. Ravi is. I went to Delhi and I saw Yamuna in 2006. It was more or less the same. Ganga is different, but Yamuna is almost the same. So Ravi is even much worse off than Yamuna. So that's a very sordid saga that I'm just referring to. But and then partition robbed Lahore. KKZ says that government college Lahore and Lahore city, they lost their prime with partition happening, because all this multiculturalism, all this eclectic and syncretic cultural values, they went away. And I read a book, Lahore Ka Jo Zikr Kiya, that was written by Gopal Mittal. Gopal Mittal was a laureate. Now I think he would not be with us. He refused to leave Lahore. So his Muslim friends, they expostulated him that, please, you will get killed. He said, no, I am not going to. They virtually forced him and put him on the bus. That book is fascinating, Lahore Ka Jo Zikr Kiya. He gives such a wonderful details about the way literary culture prospered here. Arab Hotel, Nagina Bakery, where all those laureates used to sit and exchange views. Tlokchand Marhum, similarly, this Gopal Mittal, and several others. Sometimes Rajendra Singh Bedi used to come. Krishan Chandra used to come there. And, then Coffee House, then Park Tea House. Park Tea House came after partition. So now Park Tea House is is the legatee of those institutions which uh, used to offer hostility. Yes, there's the book Lahore Ka Jo Zikr Kiya, Gopal Mittal. I really felt so sad that tears started welling up into my eyes. So that was a culture. Then obviously a progressive writers movement. It had a very, very strong impact on Lahore. Fez Ahmed Fez, was one of the products, one of the outcome of Sajjad Zahir. And then Septe Hassan, all of them were from UP, but then Fez Ahmed Fez was obviously from Sialkot. But he lived most of his life whenever he was in Pakistan, in Lahore. So his residence has been converted into Fez Museum now. Similarly, Noon Mim Rashid. All these fellows imbibed quite a lot from progressive writers movement. And progressive writers movement had a great role to play in, and intellectually, when Pakistan came into being, the defining Pakistan had become difficult, because this progressive writers movement had such a strong impact on people that all major laureates who inhabited Lahore, they didn't know how to provide meanings to this newly founded state. Because all those fellows, like Faiz was very Majaz Lakhnavi was very influential here. Miraji was very influential. Similarly, the writings of Quratul and Heather. Quratul and Heather is one cannot do. And now, you should not lament on the state of Urdu. Obviously, it's not a everyday language, of course, because Hindi has laid siege there in Delhi and its surrounding areas. Kai Chand Tisare Asman, you know, that's Quratul and Heather, yes. Kai Chand Tisare Asman is the best novel for last 40 years ever written in Urdu, and that was written by an Indian, um, Shamsur Rahman Farooqi. Now with Shamsur Rahman Farooqi in India, we cannot lay claim that Urdu is solely our language, and similarly, Javed Akhtar knows so much about Urdu. Mm. So that is those are the links between Delhi and Lahore, and Urdu can be one very solid link. And another link might be Punjabi people living in Delhi. There are lots of Punjabis, and we Pakistanis wait to see when Biharis and Punjabis they fight with each other and there's some civil war between them. Obviously, we will side with Punjabis there. But then Urdu and this common heritage, and whenever we read history or we teach history, we cannot do it without the mention of Delhi and Agra. Even up till 5 to 10 years back, Lahore had never been taught here as a subject of history, but Delhi was. Without Delhi, um, you cannot teach history. You cannot teach Mughals. You cannot teach Khandan Gulama and Shamsuddin Al Tutmish, Yasuddin Balban, those fellows. So Qutub Minar, Masjid Quwatul Islam. I didn't enjoy when I set my eyes on Masjid Quwatul Islam, but well, that is similarly Lodi Gardens. So all these things, uh, I cannot say that all these things can be termed as alien to us. No, as the common heritage that binds Lahore and Delhi together. I think I will stop here because I'm becoming a bit nostalgic.
Uh, Thank you very much. So, I mean, I was just while you were speaking, I was just taking notes here, and I realized that before 1922, the oldest three colleges of Delhi, that Saint Stephen's, Hindu, and Ramjas, were also from the Punjab University.
Hmm.
Till 1922, when Delhi University was established, they were all, from the Punjab University. Of course,
Yeah,
then you talked about Shamsur Rahman Farooqi. Right now he's unwell, and our prayers are with him. He
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hospitalized.
Well, this was published in Pakistan also,
Yes,
and it is read by almost everybody, and it is talked and it is part of MPhil in Urdu, and several others. You cannot. And when I was writing a paper, I was amazed that there had been some Hindu poets who were not Go poets, who used to say, you know, not is in the praise of Prophet of Islam. So, you know, and then this debate, which was not acceptable to many Pakistanis, that who was the one who wrote first national anthem for Pakistan? You know, Tulok Chand Mehroom's son. You know, and incidentally, I was given his interview, which probably published in Hindustan Times, or you know, so that's something which
Hafiz
seems.
Jalandhari has actually written poems on Krishna.
Yes. Mm. And Ali Sardar Jafi once said that that the first book of poetry that came of Iqbal, when it was published, it was dedicated to Bhagwan Krishna. Now I haven't seen that, but you know, Ali Sardar Jafi cannot be taken lightly. He was a heavyweight. So if that is so, what do you call it? You know, and so the there had been devotees to Dada Gaipaksh, non-Muslims. There had been, you know, Sakhi Sarwar. Other day, a Punjabi intellectual said that it's not Sakhi Sarwar, it's Sakhi Sarovar. But everyone, you know, many Muslims are devotees, Hindus had been devotees, and Sikhs. So that commonality, we are losing it. That's unfortunate. You know, binding people together, you know, that has become a distant dream. And previously, we have been incriminating ourselves that, well, we are doing this, but ever since the new Sarkar has come into India, we think that we are slightly better off now. I don't know.
So, and while this is the last century in Pakistan, how has that been in Delhi, Dr. Liddle?
Well, from the Ravi and comparing it to the Yamuna, and one can see so many parallels that I don't need to go into, all the people who are listening and are familiar with Delhi will know that all those things that you say about Lahore are true of Delhi too. The destruction of old neighborhoods, old buildings. This is a common refrain that the pollution, the cutting down of trees, this is something that has happened to us as well. And unfortunately, we are dealing with all of that too. But I mean, I would like to, I don't have a lot to add to that. And it's been fascinating to really listen to your what you say about Lahore, and you've talked a bit about what it's like now as well. And I keep hearing, as a conservationist or somebody who's interested in conservation, I'm also very interested in what I hear about conservation initiatives in the old city, etc. And I'm really, I must say, very jealous, because when I look at Shahjahanabad today, and I think so much more can be done. And I think the way forward really is that we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
From each other's mistakes as well as what we've done right in some ways. I mean, you talk about overhead bridges and metro lines and train lines, etc. We've had to deal with that in Delhi as well. And I remember this was quite some year, more than a decade ago, when there was a big public campaign and a lot of public pressure, which led to the scrapping of the idea of bringing a metro line right in the line of sight of the Qutub Minar, which would have ruined the view of the Qutub Minar. That was struck down eventually because of public pressure. So we have a slightly more positive story in that regard. But yes, I mean, we are all grappling with those issues, whether it is the colonial heritage or what we are doing to our cities. I mean, not only Lahore and Delhi, I'm sure, but many other cities that we are, that are suffering this kind of degradation of heritage as well as natural environment. So, but it is good to exchange notes, and I'm so very grateful that you've told us so much about Lahore. It's brought the place alive for a lot of us in India and in Delhi, listening to you. Thank you so much.
Well, Swapna, another thing that those older institutions like Government College Lahore, Foreman Christian College Lahore. I heard that Bipan Chandra was a student of Foreman Christian College. Bipan Chandra was very kind to me personally, and he came to Lahore, and we had a great session. He talked to our students also, and he enthralled them really, because uh, he had very strong vocal cords, and a great um, great historian, no doubt about this. So similarly, Kinnaird College came up in 1914 as a girls' college. So all those, because of this privatization of education in Pakistan, this is a something which really bothers me, because higher education now, Lahore is a knowledge center, center. Previously it was Islamabad to a certain extent, but now everyone who wants to educate the kids and or want to have academia as a career, and Lahore is the best place. LUMS is here, so BNU, where I teach, Lahore School of Economics, and so all those great institutions of the yore. mm, uh, uh, they have been shoved to the back seat, like now Government College seems to be a very poor flickering shadow of its past. Now premier educational institution is LUMS. And LUMS was created by those people who were the alumnus of Government College Law. Same is the case with Kinnaird College. Kinnaird College was very, very prestigious. Everyone wanted to send their daughters to that college. Now, then Gangaram set up a school for the Hindu girls, and that was later on taken over by the government, and they opened up a degree college for women. It was elevated to status of a university now. There's so many universities in Lahore. I think Lahore has the maximum number of universities in the entire world, and in every gully there you may find 3 or 4 universities. So correspondingly, the as quality has come down appreciably. Now Government College, which was meant for 450 people, now you'll be amazed, there are 14,000 students. That there's no place for Our current vice chancellor is very good. He is trying to bring about positive changes. But it was not meant to be a university, first of all. Then there's so many students that you cannot teach teach there. I have seen when I was there till January 2019, people standing in a queue to avail washroom. So these are some, this is institutional decay that really bothers. Um, Similarly, Anarkali Bazaar has lost its prime. As traditional Anarkali Bazaar. Akbari Mandi is still flourishing. Just because Shahi Hammam has been renovated, and as that area has been given a new life, by this Ward City project. Similarly, they had been repairing Masjid Wazir Khan. Masjid Wazir Khan's one tower was destroyed in 1965 war because one bomb fell on it, and the one minaret went down, so it was reconstructed. Similarly, Bashai Mosque, the way it was used, that too is really interesting. Since it's in a very close proximity of Shahi Fort, so as minars had been used to bombard for the bombardment, they used to carry cannons with ropes and all that, and by mounting those cannons up to the top of the minars, they used to carry out bombardments by the Sikhs. So if you see any photo of Lahore in 1930s, Bashai Mosque will be without minars, with the minars broken. So it was Sir Sikandar Hayat Khan who rebuilt, brought Bashai Mosque to its pristine glory, and that gave him an entitlement to be buried, within the larger premises of the Bashai Mosque. On the one side is Iqbal's grave, and on the other side of the mosque is Sikandar Hayat. So I hope all those ramblings of mine will help having you some view, some of fuzzy picture of Lahore. So I hope you people may come over if the relationship gets a bit cordial between two countries having 800 years of shared history and heritage.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
is
you.
is it enough,
Please, Dr.
Chandra, for
Liddle.
today, or?
It's been absolutely wonderful to listen to you. Thank you so much.
No. Likewise, Swapna, I have learned quite a lot, and I would really love if you have written something on Delhi College. I'll love to read that, because I really think that Delhi College was one such institution which could have brought an alternative um, system of knowledge.
That's part of my thesis and hopefully upcoming book.
Good. Do something so that we can have your book here in Pakistan too, because our book is not available. So that book is available to everyone in a pirate, in the form of a pirated book, and it's cheap, so it's easily purchasable. So it has become quite available to all and sundry. Before before that, it was a bit expensive. So सो अनारकली में जो है वो 200 रुपए की किताब मिल जाती है हर एक को.
So we are similar in a lot more respects in this history.
No, Christopher Bailey had been lamenting all the way through that JNU has, in JNU, no one buys his book. Everyone gets photocopy of it and reads. Well, we are settling our scores with colonial masters. No problem. And then,
Thank you very much. Whatever I had to say or whatever closing remarks that I had have been taken care of by both of you, and whatever is left has been taken care of by the people who are watching us. There are all these comments that have come in. There are a number of them. There are a few questions. If we can just spend about 10 minutes taking them up.
yes, sure.
I will just let me just put them on the screen also. Professor Kamran, tell us about the demography of Lahore. Shahjahanabad could boast of multicultural demographics since its inception, as Dr. Liddle too mentioned at the beginning. Also, post-partition, there was a huge influx of Punjabi population of both Hindu and Muslims. But to me, the impression that they left a lot of their cultures back and became more of a struggle here. What actually is Lahori culture post and pre-partition? Okay, the last line is the significant question. What is the Lahori culture pre and post-partition?
Well, so far as demography is concerned, Lahore is still quite a bit of multicultural in a way that from all the peripheral areas of Punjab and Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, many of them have come here and they start living here. Now we can see that lots of Pashtun ethnicity, is quite conspicuous in the old Lahore. So they are into trading, and they're asserting itself as a business community. And but so far as politics is concerned, I still think that these two bradaries or kinships are very important. One is Arai Bradri, and one is Kashmiris. Kashmiris came to various towns and cities of Lahore from 1860s onwards when there was a severe famine in Kashmir. So many people from Srinagar and the surrounding areas, they came down to live in Amritsar. Amritsar had a huge Kashmiri population. Similarly, Gujranwala, Sialkot, and Lahore, and many of them are now in Rawalpindi also. But in Lahore, these are the two. Whenever elections happen, these two bradaries are the main contestants. And so one has to take care of the Kashmiri voters as well as Rain voters because they have resources, they're moneyed people, and then the third are butchers. So that's how the big loss, economic loss that Lahore suffered was with the exit of Khatri population, Khatri Hindus, who went to India because most of the business and most of the economy was being looked after, was being managed by those Khatri people. And Lahore was quite a prosperous city. So that prosperity obviously gave way to a strange sort of a lifestyle that was a bit of a corruption and real estate. Corruption and real estate was was the legacy of the partition because people came and lots of people made exodus from Lahore. So Lahore was half empty, and people coming from the Indian side, they were they had a free field day, like Krishnanagar and Santnagar, those areas which were inhabited by the Hindu Khatri business class. Many people came and settled there, so they didn't have to wait, and there was no organization as such as we hear that it happened in India. So whosoever got whatever, he grabbed onto it and he held it as its own possession. So from there, this corruption or the corrupt practices, it flourished. And now, current government is trying to crack down in it, but it has seeped so deep. So that's how one can describe Lahore. And there are few older families like Sayyids and Fakir family and Hakims, and they have lost their prime now. New business, new people from other cities, they have converged on Lahore. So now Lahore has become multicultural, but in some ways, you can say that multiculturalism too uh, is mostly among the Punjabis themselves. Because Punjabis have subcultural stratum. There had been Lendi Punjabi, there had been Potwari Punjabi, there had been Saraiki Punjabi. So in Lahore, you will find every kind of Punjabi here. Some sections of Urdu speaking people. We used to have a Parsi population, but it is vanishing. It has almost vanished. Christian population is still there, Johannabad and Youngsanabad and Jamesabad, living in the outskirts of Lahore. There had been Sikhs. Now, the good thing is that we can see many Sikh boys and girls in several educational institutions and workplaces. So Sikh population has gained a lot of confidence over the last few years. I hope it explains about demography. Of course, things have changed. Pre-partition Lahore was different. It was progressive. It was not that religious. You know, now religiosity has overtaken. In 1970s, if you asked, who are you, while walking on the mall, who are you? I'm Pakistani, then I'm Punjabi, then I'm Muslim. Now it's Alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim, then I'm Pakistani. I speak Urdu, despite the fact that he is Punjabi. So Urdu has taken over. So I'm one of those who have been impressing and rather emphasizing that, well, Urdu and Punjabi should go hand in hand. But Punjabi has been jettisoned somehow. So now there are few voices in favor of Punjabi, but our young generation now my own children, they feel comfortable talking in English. What to say? उर्दू को भी अब तो हम जो है वो क्या करें, वो उर्दू ही नहीं बोलते वो both my kids, they speak English. They feel far more comfortable. The first language to them is English. So अब तो हालात और भी ज्यादा खराब हो गए, अब क्या करें?
This question is to Dr. Liddle. It says, "Good evening, Dr. Liddle. Could you please talk a bit about the courtesan culture in Delhi in the 18th century? Do we have any sources on Delhi tawaifs apart from Dargah Kuli Khan Muraqqai Delhi?"
To be very frank, I'm not it's just that my ignorance that I'm not aware of them. But whether there has been any particular work on that. But I think very briefly I can say that courtesan culture cannot be separated from the culture of Delhi as such, because whether it is poetry, for instance, poetry, whether it's so all aspects of culture. In fact, we were talking about Shamsur Rahman Farooqi's Kai Chand Se Sare Asman. For the 19th century, it gives you a very good idea of the culture of Delhi, and you can see where the strands then meet, because it is very much part of the culture of Delhi as such. So it's these are things that you can glean from the writings, and I'm more familiar with the 19th century, of course. So yes, there are a lot of writings on Delhi of that period where you can find these kinds of things. I'm not very familiar with the 18th century, I'm afraid.
This is a question from Rohit Mishra. Lahore feels much like Delhi. I'd like to know about how the effort the civil society in Lahore is making towards reclaiming its pre-colonial syncretic past.
Well, pre-colonial syncretic past cannot be retrieved because, as if pre-colonial syncretic past is retrieved, retrieved in 21st century, it will be a different past. It will be a different phenomenon altogether. So obviously, Lahore was multicultural, multi-religious. Now, multi-religious, how can Lahore be multi-religious? I cannot comment on that. It's virtually impossible. So civil society is quite active here. I saw civil society and its power when I saw Aurat March, particularly the women. And good thing is that girls are very, very active. They're very confident, and they're better students. Because in my own university, girls are very assertive. They're self-conscious, and they're aware as to whatever is happening all around, and they're aware about their own selves. So they're conscious beings. So now, if we have religiosity, on the other hand, we have a section of the society which is very progressive and which will not accept anything lying down. So that's a redeeming feature. So during the last 20 years or so, the education, the spread of the education, I have my problems with the quality of that education, but and then out of this quantity, some quality too is coming out, because for last 20, before 25 years or so, teaching the students of 2020 is far more interesting and far more challenging, and because they know what they're talking about, and they know what they're going to do with their lives. So it's not all lost, but obviously syncretic past. I have my doubts whether we can retrieve it at all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kamran, Dr. Liddle, for this. We are at 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is quite a long time for us. Of course, I didn't realize how it flowed past. So, we could keep on talking.
Chandra, in fact, 12 o'clock is my birthday, so my relatives are here. My brother. I will be turning 56.
Many happy returns of the day in advance.
Many happy returns of the day, Professor Sir.
Thank you very much. Well, you made an appearance quite late, Shakustar.
Sorry. ये तो मौका था आने का, इसलिए मैं आ गई.
अच्छा, बहुत शुक्रिया. That's very, very sweet of you. This is a question by Rehan Asad. Thanks for the great conversation. My question with Tahir Kamran that some of the political and cultural families of partition Lahore lost their roles. Yes, Mia family lost its because Mia family lost its role with the death of Mia Muhammad Shafi. Mia Muhammad Shafi died in 1931, and after that, his daughter Shah Jahara Shah Nawaz was a big name, of course, among the women politicians. But after that, Mia family, and then Mia Iftikharuddin, he was a leader of the left, and he started Pakistan Times, and he was quite a fascinating figure. But unfortunately, after his demise, Mia family could not hold on to the prominence that they once had enjoyed. That is the answer to Rehan. I hope I have answered your question. So thank you very much, Swapna. Thank you very much, Chandra. It's really lovely, and we will stay in touch. I will share whatever I write, weekly columns and all that. I will be trusting it on you, whatever I write. I hope you.
Look forward to all your writing and more talks from you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And many happy returns again.
Yeah, so very nice of you. So very nice of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.